Okay, hello everyone, those that are online and those that are in the audience. Welcome to Menlo Park Architects Session District Board of Directors meeting on March 18th. They were to apply for the meeting at 2:01. What?
At 7:02.
Oh, I'm sorry, 7:02.
You think it at another clock in the conference room?
I reversed it everything, you know, I need to get that checked out.
Coffee on Hawaiian time.
Yeah. Roll call, Michelle.
Director Bernstein?
Present.
Director Bloom?
Here.
Director Jones?
Here.
Director Crowley? President. Director Solano?
We stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Oh, no.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have no reportable action items from our closed session meeting today. Are there any public comments?
There are no public comments.
No public comments. Then the first item on our agenda, Mr. Chair, is the report from the project.
Thank you, Director Jones, members of the board and members of the public, and to our auditor. Shout out. Happy to share with you this month's fire chief's report. To begin with a quick facilities update on Station 1, you have a report in your packet. Really, what I just want to highlight, a lot of that is information that we've already shared. The changes to that, there's some minor financial and funding changes in there. Also, I just share with you, we expect to hear back from the city of Menlo Parkway early next week on our second submittal to the planning department. Our hope is that they'll have sufficient information from us now so they can start their secret process. Also, we're currently having some initial conversations from the seminary next door, just on some of the design elements related to walls and trees and us using their property. So stay tuned for more information on that. Recruitment and promotions. We completed our fire captain's test. We published it and certified it. Happy to share with you, we're going to be making our first promotion this Thursday to new fire captain Charles Washington, who came out number 1 on the list. So that was very exciting for Charles and for us. He crushed it, as did all 7 of our candidates passed the test. So that list will be good for 2 years. Fire marshal, just quick update. I made a job offer and Gage Schleiss accepted. He'll be starting April 16th, and which will give us that 2-week overlap that we had hoped with John. He comes to us from the city of San Bruno as their fire marshal there, and also long history, which is unusual for fire marshals, as a firefighter with Cal Fire and Petaluma, and then San Bruno. And then they grabbed him in San Bruno and turned him into a fire marshal.
You said the name, say the name again.
Yeah, Gage Schleiss. Schleiss, I'm sure it gets mispronounced all the time.
And he was a sworn firefighter?
Yeah. The majority of his career. Like I said, usually people don't end up going on the fire prevention path, but I think you guys will really enjoy and appreciate him. Smart, interesting, innovative, and really competent in his current job as fire marshal. Some updates for you on the community engagement unit, just to share what Heather and Amandeep have been doing over the last month. Some school and youth group visits. They did a presentation for 30 students at Synapse School, did Little League opening day, Menlo Park Early Learning Center, had 64 students they presented to. Oak Knoll School, 22 students, at Phillips Brooks School, 60 students. Classes and presentations, hands-only CPR training for 70 City of East Palo Alto staff. Advanced first aid class for our community, fire safety and emergency preparedness presentation for 30 Boy Scouts and their parents. E-Prep presentation for 25 teenagers from the Young Men's Service League. And then Heather presented an emergency preparedness to about 60-minute tutorials. Also, our CERT team was engaged in running our firefighter rehab, using our CERT members for our South Zone live fire training that we did out at the rescue site last week. So always a nice way to keep our volunteers engaged that they love helping out and being around the firefighters. And our latest CERT Academy started last Saturday. In there is the fire response analysis report. I know that is big on the possible agenda item, so we might talk about that a little bit later on. Nothing significant to report on the report. New development update. I know I have a bullet point. I'll actually talk about it a little bit in my city council meeting rotation item that's right below. As I shared, I was going to start making rotations through the different city council meetings. The intent was going to be to do once a month, and suddenly a bunch of things happened, and I think I am going to be attending 3 within about a month. So started off with just things happen. There's special meetings. It's all good. My first meeting was actually with Director Bloom at the Atherton Town Council meeting on February 19th. Just got up and introduced myself and shared some information with them. Other than that, just sat there, be available. And we actually had a couple of committee members come up with some questions after the meeting. The Menlo Park City Council was, I hadn't planned on attending this one, but there was a meeting with the,
Yeah, good.
that was, Justin Murphy reached out and asked that myself and Chief Johnson be available because they were expecting to hear the appeal from the Sheridan project. So spent 6.5 quality hours in the city of Menlo Park council room. Virginia was there. Sorry, Director Corrali and Director Solana both were there. Long meeting with a lot of public comment, and still at the end, probably just a little after midnight, got up and answered some questions for council members related to the process. Coming up next Thursday is another special council meeting in the city of East Palo Alto that really focuses on emergency planning. And so they are having a Brown Act notice meeting to actually go through and talk about emergency preparedness. It's an input from community groups, from the fire district, and also hear from council members about what they're interested in. So
What's the date?
that is next Thursday, the 25th at, I think it starts at 6:30? 6 o'clock.
Same.
City Hall, yeah.
Thank you.
Next, I'll just touch on it lightly, the fire hazard severity zone maps. This is for our local responsibility area. Don Johnson just shared with me they are up and available and posted on our website. As we're aware, we were fortunate in the state's evaluation of our areas, and that except for 12 parcels over in Weekend Acres, no impacts to our areas. Everything was rated below moderate. So that's good news. We're waiting to see whether or not the board actually has to adopt the state maps. And so we're continuing some conversations with the state fire marshal's office and Steve's office too on the requirements related to that. You may see something next month about us adopting the maps, but just be aware, very little impacts to us and our communities, which is good. We also hosted the Joint Community Wildfire Forum just this last Thursday at Palmer Park. This was a request that grew out of a lot of concern related to the LA fires. A number of city council members reached out to our board members here. They had some meetings with them, discussed about some of the things we could do to partner with them. And so internally, we prepared some Menlo Park branded information sheets that we handed out, and also held this joint forum that was in partnership. ADAP and us. And so that was almost 2 hours last Thursday night. Really nice meeting. About 40 people attended. Really engaged audience. It was that's really interested. And I would imagine we will also be doing this with the cities of Menlo Park and East Palo Alto. They'll look different, the risks. Already reached out and had a conversation with Justin Murphy about setting something like that up. So we're gonna plan on doing that in the future. And I'm figuring that next Thursday's meeting might be a good opportunity for us to actually talk about that with Melvin Gaines, and figure out what the city of East Palo Alto would be interested in us partnering with them on some kind of community.
Have you seen any information about the meeting for next week? Have you seen any documentation?
I didn't get any documentation. I know there's been some emails going back and forth, and we have a presentation that we're gonna make at the meeting.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'll send it to you.
Okay.
It kind of they go through a strategic planning process. And so part of one of the items we found is getting around to is emergency. preparedness. And so there's, a group of folks, I think Heather's gonna be there, and a couple other groups gonna be there, making a presentation about it.
Looking forward to it. Also, we had an invite from David Canepa, our Board of Supervisors Chair, to come for a County Board of Supervisors wellness presentation at the end of February on the 25th. Myself, Director Corrali, Jason Martin, and Tom Calvert all were there on behalf of the fire district to share some information about some of the progressive things we're doing on firefighter mental health and wellness. Really highlighted the support we've had from the board and how proactive we've been here in trying to address this ongoing issue in the first responder industry, law enforcement, fire, and EMS personnel all together. So that was a really nice presentation.
And longer than expected.
Sure.
Could you speak up a little?
Sure. It seemed like the presentation you guys gave at the board of supervisors, where is that gonna lead? I mean, are you
I'll give
expecting
it
some money, or you're gonna do it before?
Yeah, I'll give it, I mean, I can answer your question, but, it was just a few weeks ago, and I was talking to, Supervisor Canepa's office about that, and they're reaching out, they're trying to figure out the logistics and the next steps as well. Basically, I think there was support for it. I think Jackie Spear, Supervisor Spear, made a motion to, kind of start looking into a countywide mental health and wellness program for emergency responders in response to the resolution that they adopted.
Yeah, you don't know what happened over the weekend, right?
No. Was it?
Was it the weekend, today?
Well, I don't know. I don't
Last
know.
week. It seemed like it was a serious incident after over the East Palo Alto.
Oh, yes.
So, and it kind of really, I don't know what our response or what else we're gonna do besides just give it a thank you and present it to them. If there's gonna be, or there's anything that we're gonna do is try to focusing on our folks here. I know that there's counseling sessions that's available to people. But I think somewhere along the line needs to go a little bit deeper than just having it available. And I don't know what the process and procedure is for folks, but I think that should be almost like an automatic somewhere.
And I can come back at some point in time in the near future and share, I can agendize it and share what it is exactly that we're doing here. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised about what we do internally in the district.
Okay.
As far as the services that we have for our staff and how proactive we are. The presentation at the county board was there. They wanted to do something. I don't know if it was mental health awareness week or month, but they wanted to do a proclamation. And they wanted to have a first responder agency that was actively engaged in it, come share what they were doing. So a lot of people were looking at what Menlo Park was doing and trying to figure out ways that they could emulate some of the programs that we have here. No talk, I think there's interest on the county side to figure out ways to fund it. But we are already doing that, and I think you'll be really pleasantly surprised at what we're doing here for our firefighters.
Is it mandatory that if they encounter a situation, that they mandatory that they go the next day or two and talk with them?
Well, you can't force somebody to talk, but there are things we do with diffusings after an incident, so even if you just want to sit there quietly, you know, you're kind of a part. So it's not quite mandatory.
I hope a little more about the little different.
Chief, when you come back and agendize that topic, because it should be an agendized topic
Yes.
versus discussed now.
Yeah,
Can you also touch on the kind of retirement
sure.
discussion that you and I had as well?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And could you just, because I don't know what you're talking about right now, could you talk about what incident occurred or what triggered all this?
Well, I'm not sure if it was the shooting in East Palo Alto or, oh,
Yeah.
there was a police pursuit that ended up in a shooting. I don't have a lot of clarity on exactly what transpired, but I'm assuming that was the incident you were talking about. There's, you know, it's just a traumatic, and so as a result of it, we had a shooting, whether it was self-inflicted or not, I'm not sure, but it was a traumatic full arrest that our folks worked on the scene, so that, yeah, sometimes can add to our mental baggage, so to speak. So as we witness these different things, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not sure all the nuances of the situation, but that's what Director Jordan is talking about.
Thank you.
Oh, quickly on the outstanding staff reports, still internal controls, electrification of fire service vehicles, and I also added an ISO review. I just know that wasn't something that we talked about specifically at one of the, as an item that an individual on the board wanted to add, but there was collective interest from the board when we talked about the ISO review for us to come back and chat about that. I think that will be a nice thing to give a new set of eyes to put on it with Gage, our new fire marshal, and we can have that conversation with him. Also, incidents of significance, we had one structure fire in the 200 block of O'Keefe in Menlo Park on the 20th of February. The results were a $250,000 loss for structure and $150,000 loss in contents. That's still, you know, significant damage with a pretty quick stop on the fire. So no injuries related to that, and that concludes my fire chief's report.
Any questions for? Yes.
I got three real quick questions, I think. You were talking about the CERT group that is now starting up again, right? The CERT.
Oh, yeah, a new class.
The new class. Can you tell me how many people are in it?
I don't know what the numbers are, I'll find out.
Okay, thank you. And then I wanted to ask you about the rotation that you're doing in these various cities.
Oh, sure.
Are you including the county as part of your rotation?
I have not.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm not pushing, I was just curious does it make sense to have the county be
To
part
go
of
to the
it?
county board of supervisors? Maybe.
I think it depends on what's on the agenda. Right.
I can start, and you know, I do have a new admin, I can have her start looking at the agenda and see if there's something that's relevant to us on there, I'd be more than happy to attend.
Okay, and then the other thing I wanted to ask you about was the weekend acres. That you said, I think 12 properties there were put on the list of fire,
Yes.
wildfire hazard. Are those 12 properties in our district or are they in weekend acres but not in our district?
They're in our district. And they went from no threat to moderate, so.
And then are there other properties that are in weekend acres that are not part of our district?
That also, there are some properties that are not part of our district, I'm not sure, they would have been included previously in the states.
I just wondered if there were more properties in weekend acres other than the 12, but only 12 of them were in our district.
Yes, we have more than 12 in weekend acres. 12 of the ones that are in our district were classified higher.
And what about ones that are not in our district?
I did.
I see, okay. I just wondered if that represents a danger,
Yeah.
more danger for us.
I would imagine the modeling program doesn't really look at parcels. I would imagine the homes adjacent or in that same neighborhood would probably also be now a moderate fire hazard. Which is on the lowest scale of having a risk associated.
And the only effect is that people's insurance rates will go up, is that?
In theory, The insurance industry does not use those maps. I say in theory, now, with the insurance industry that has more money than probably the state of California, has invested in modeling and programs that are probably at least as good as the state. So they use similar criteria for determining risk. And so I think it's a good indication that, you know, if the state's maps are showing that the insurance industry's maps are also showing there's risk there, so there's potential. But again, it's going from no risk to moderate risk. My experience has been it's not been super detrimental. People losing or related to people losing their insurance.
Would it relate at all to our fire prevention group proving changes to those homes or anything like
No,
that?
that's a great question. No, it doesn't. At the moderate level, there's no new building standards that apply. It's when you go to the high and very high that we have to apply the state's new building standards and also defensible space.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, so Mark, I just want to thank you for sending that email out to us about our new fire marshal, you know, kind of just socializing us to him. I thought it was great. I know that, you know, you have the authority to hire him, but it was great for us to at least be able to chime in if we wanted to. And, you know, so thanks for giving us his background. I'm looking forward to welcoming Gage Spice.
Can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
Can you tell us about the transition? Who takes over officially at what point and all that kind of stuff?
That's good. Great. You know, and I suppose in theory we'll have 2 fire marshals. And I would imagine John will probably be the primary authority until John retires on April 30th. And at that time, Gage will be our full-time fire marshal.
Thank you.
But I'd say for unity of command, meaning just there's one fire marshal, it's John Johnston.
Thank you, Chief. Moving on, we have a complete calendar, 2 and 4, area approval for,
I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
motion been made.
I'll second.
You got a second, all right, thank you.
I'd like
to call for question.
I'd like to ask the number 3 be pulled off.
Item number 3 and 4. Okay, so,
I'll just make a motion to approve items 1 and 2.
And I'll second.
okay, motion been made and second.
Item 2, I believe.
2 and
It's item
3.
2, it's 2 and 3.
So you just want to.
I'm sorry, I was looking at,
One.
just, yeah, item 2, sorry, I was looking at the front page, item 1, which is, yeah, no. Item 2, which is, the minutes of February 18th, 2025, special and regular board meetings. So I'll move to approve that.
I'll second.
Round second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So, item number 3 was pulled off, so, have a comment?
I don't have any comment, but I'm sorry to say, I had trouble reading this, and I just wonder if you could just take a minute with me to explain. Let's start with on page 2 of 7 of the report. And if you can explain this to me, then once I get it, I think it'd be all right, but I was trying to understand. I don't understand how the last line, the net operating change, relates to anything else, and I don't know how it's calculated. So let's just look at on page 2 of 7, in that, maybe third column over, there's a $9.9 million there. What's the calculation that gives us $9 million?
So it's actually the revenues less expenditures, plus or minus the net operating transfer.
So I'm looking at 5 million in revenue, is that right?
Correct, as of January, yes.
And then I see 6 million in expenditure. How do I get 9 million?
Oh, let's see.
I'm not suggesting it's wrong, I'm having trouble making sense of it.
Yeah, let me just check the calculation. It might be just, an error.
I think it's right. I think
Yeah, it's right. I think it's just the sign that's incorrect, I believe. Let's see.
It should be the 5.3 in revenue
Yeah, so
minus.
it's actually correct, Director Bernstein. So it's a negative $9 million.
But so you're saying 5 million minus 6 million?
Uh-huh. And then plus the
Yeah.
negative 8.3.
Oh, plus the transfers.
Yeah, so the net, so if, it's technically it's a deduction since it's negative. So if you can just like 5.3 million minus 6 million less 8.3 million. So that leads you to $9 million.
I see. Oh, okay. I was having trouble putting it together. And that the next two columns would be like that as well.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, let me just, I guess my question is, when we look at this, we call it an operating change. Why would transfers be considered an operating change?
Like for budgetary purposes and, for a modified accrual basis, transfers are actually, considered as, expenses or like income in a way. So that's why, we included that as part of, the calculation in, the net operating change. But these transfers are really basically, internal transfers, so transfers to, different funds, mostly it's, transfers to the CIP fund.
Which is what that one is.
Yes.
I see. Okay, let me just look at one other place here. And then I'm trying to understand the reason. If we look at page 5 of 7, again, this is just for me trying to make sense of everything. I'm looking at, this is the special revenue fund.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to understand what the logic is or why it is that the revenues equal the expenses here. How does that happen to be true?
Yeah, so technically, so this, special revenue fund, it actually houses, our cooperative agreements. So the cooperative agreements, those are cost reimbursement grants. So ideally, and we're talking about grants, your expenses would always equal to your revenues. Because, if, the timing aligns, when we receive it on time, your projected revenue, your projected expenditure should be equal at the same time. So that's why, your revenues and expenditures here are actually the same for the projection.
This is predominantly the USAR grant money. So we get reimbursed, so the revenue and the expenses were allocated amount of money to expend.
Yeah,
And that
unless,
is corresponds to the revenue that we get in.
yeah, unless at the end of the fiscal year, let's say, for example, we have a claim or a drawdown of like $200,000 at June 30. That we haven't received yet, right? So the revenue, according to our, accounting, policy or accounting standards, we can consider that as part of the revenue if we receive that within 60 days after the year end. So at year expenditures, but technically, that's what we're expecting because the turnaround time, like in the past, like historically speaking, when we're talking about the cooperative agreements, when we do the drawdowns, we receive that really quickly. So, our projection is, our expenditures, so what we spent for our, grants, is pretty much what we're gonna receive, what we're gonna record as well, as our revenue for this fiscal year.
Okay. And let me ask you, just because it's kind of compounded here, I'm looking at page 6 of 7 for a minute, where down at the bottom of the chart number, just above the circle,
Uh-huh.
and it's talking about the different yields and so forth here. Given that the market is going down, I know this sounds, oh, I'm sorry, this is page 6 of 7 of this, or page
Page 32.
Page 32 of the,
Thank you.
Yeah, it's got the pie chart on.
and it's just above the pie chart. Just because my brain can't keep track of all the steps here. we're valuing the investment at the time of purchase of the investment, is that right? Or are we valuing it at present?
We're valuing it in this report, we're valuing it as of January 31st.
I see, so, and these yields then are based on the January value?
Correct.
And then they'll match the yields that show up in the camp report,
Right, and I
the
saw that,
PFM report overall.
I saw that it did, so when the value of the market is going down,
Mhm.
these securities are paying fixed yields, is that right?
Correct.
So are we expecting then, if the value of the security goes down and the yields, the amount of the yield stays constant, we're expecting our yields to go up, even though our portfolio value went down?
No, we're expecting our yields to go down actually, because of the Fed rates, the Fed interest rate cuts. A simple answer is, we're expecting it to go down, but not for all of our portfolios. We have basically two, portfolios right now. One is our liquid portfolio, which is the CAMP and the LAVE, which right now they have pretty similar, yield, which is around 4.5% or 4.37% for LAVE. So this one is short term. So this would actually be greatly affected when the interest rate was it's getting 2-3 cuts in the next few months or so, because these are short term, so it really follows the Fed interest rate cut. But for our managed account, which is our more longer term portfolio, this is our maturity on this one is between 1 to 3 years. So some of this we're really locked in. So even if, let's say, the interest rate went down from 4.5 to 4%, for example, right? But if a bunch of our investments in that managed account is, let's say, a 2-year or 3-year maturity, and we're already locked in that rate when we purchase it, which is at a higher yield, let's say 5 or 4.7, 4.6%, then we won't see as much drop if we compare it to the LAVE and the CAMP account. But generally speaking, if the interest rate goes down, our yield also goes down.
Let me ask a question again, because I'm still trying to make sense of the measurement of the yield and what to rely on. The numerator, when we're measuring the yield, the numerator is the fixed dollar yield that we get from these fixed income securities, is that right?
No, if we're talking about yield, this is really just the rate, the interest. Let's say if you have $4 million, right, and then your yield is 4.55%, then that yield is the amount of interest that we're gonna receive if our if on a flat basis, $4 million is the amount that you have, and 4 million times 4.55%, that's our interest income. So I'm not quite sure about the numerator and denominator. If you can clarify that, Director Mercy.
Well, I guess what I was saying is, if we're gonna get a certain amount from our yield because it's fixed, but if that security went from $4 million valuation to $3 million valuation, it would seem like the numerator would stay constant, but the denominator would go down and the yield would actually compute as being higher.
No, our value won't go down because for CAMP and LAVE account, the basis of that interest is not the market value. It's the par value pretty much. So let's say
Okay, so that wasn't, the first question I asked you was, when is it valued? And you said it was the recent value.
yes. it's
That's
the
why I
recent-
got confused.
Yeah, it's the recent valuation, but the interest, because I guess market value is different from cost and par value, right? So when we're talking about interest income, it's not based on the market value
Okay.
alone. So I mean, especially if there's investment gains and losses,
Yes.
that happen, during a particular period. So it's a little complicated in a way, but right now, for CAMP and LAVE, it's pretty straightforward because whatever your amount is, we don't really value it up and down with the market because it has a net asset value of $1 per share. So usually it's just $4.5 million times whatever the rate is, that's gonna be your income.
I see,
So,
okay, well, that was,
It's like a money market account.
Yeah.
when you said it was January 31st, I thought it was fluctuating with the market, and that's why I was asking the question. Okay, thank you, that seems right, those were the only questions I
Okay,
had.
good.
I'll move to accept item number 3.
Okay, motion.
I'll second.
Been moved and second, any other questions? Not? Sure.
Director Bernstein,
Aye.
Director Bloom,
Aye.
Director Corrali,
Aye.
Director Solano,
I,
Director Jones.
Aye. Okay, moving on to item number, for a second. Going to our regular agenda item number 4, which has to do with, accept the annual comprehensive financial report and related supplemental reports for the fiscal year ended on June 30, 2024. And Francine or
There. So good evening again, directors, good evening, everyone. So I'm just gonna have like a brief, summary of, what transpired during our audit, and before I turn it over to our auditor here, Joe, from I Bailey. So the district has completed its annual external financial, audit for the fiscal year 23-24, and we have issued the annual comprehensive financial report in December of 2024. We also completed the single audit. That single audit is, required for all non-federal entities who receive or expend, $750,000 in, federal, dollars within, a fiscal year. And we also issued or, released, the report last February. And lastly, our auditors actually also perform procedures in, assessing, the calculation of our appropriations, limit. With that being said, I'm gonna turn it over to, Joe, from I Bailey to discuss the audit results, for fiscal year 23-24, as well as, the governance letter for matters that are required to be communicated to the board as part of your oversight responsibility in the financial reporting process.
Great, thank you. Just here real quick, just to touch bases, try to recap kind of what Elaine said. Additionally, the governmental audit as well on internal controls opinion was issued as well. There was no noticing of any sort of deficiencies in performance of that report as well. The date in which Elaine had provided for the single audit, we issued the district issued the annual comprehensive financial report prior to the year end. A lot of these communications that I'm conveying you today were communicated to the finance committee on March 4th by the partner Nathan Allen. My name is Joe Escobar, the senior manager on the job. One of the things that's important to convey with communications is related to the separation of independence from auditors with the district. We work closely with Elaine and Mark and their teams in terms of performing that. They have the responsibility to ensure that the financial statements are correctly stated, internal controls are designed, maintained, and appropriately taken care of. We come in as external auditors, have responsibility to go ahead, perform appropriate procedures to gain assurance within all material respects. The opinion that we provided were clean. Like I said, there was no deficiencies. There were no compliance findings in relation to the federal compliance. One of the things that's also required for us to go ahead and explain or note is whether or not there are any uses of estimates. There are 3 types of estimates that are included within the financial statements related to pension, OPEB, and the incurred but not reported self-insurance. We did not have to use any sort of outside consultants for performance of our audit engagement. That's also a required disclosure for us. We also did not have any significant difficulties in performance of the audit. Every time we kind of communicated with the district, we saw eye to eye. We didn't have any miscommunications or any problems in performance of the audit. So for that, we'd like to thank Mark Elaine and their team, for, allowing us to, come in and do our job and, represent that they're doing a great job as well.
Any questions, like, have for?
I'll make a comment. So we've essentially met all the requirements. The audit committee reviewed the full presentation from the auditors. So not only was it a clean opinion, there are no deficiencies in our internal controls or processes. So it's about as clean as it can get. We should compliment our finance team and compliment our auditors for fine work on reviewing it. And I move that we we accept the annual comprehensive financial report related supplements for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2024.
And I'll second that, and I echo what Gary has said, so thank you, Elaine, for putting a lot of time and effort into the IKB too.
A motion has been made and seconded. Call for the question.
I just had one comment. I think it would be really helpful if there was some way to summarize this in a very short document, like 1 or 2 or 3 pages that could be available to the public and so forth. I mean, it's a very daunting document to read as it is now. And anyway, I just think, kind of an executive summary or something like that would really be helpful to have available to send to anybody who inquires.
The motion has been made, any other comments, and the second, Michelle?
Director Bernstein,
Aye.
Director Bloom,
Aye.
Director Crawley,
Aye.
Director Solana.
Aye.
Director Jones.
Aye. I want to thank you, auditors, and yes, Elaine, because I read through it, and wow, this is great. I didn't understand half of it, but that which was interesting to me, I understood very well. I was pretty clear. So thank you.
Thank you. Especially the finance committee went into the weeds on it, so.
Yeah, well, and I want to,
We did go into the weeds on it.
and I want to thank
Thank
the
you.
finance committee too.
Thanks for coming to the meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you. We need leaders out there. You know?
Yes.
So-
Leaders.
So moving on to item number 5, which is the adopt a resolution approving the reclassification of one senior management analyst position to project manager.
That's, I'm gonna hand it right over to Francie.
So, good evening, Board of Directors. So this request is to reclass a budgeted FTE. Currently, the district has 3 budgeted senior management analyst positions, one that has never been filled, and then we have 2 others. One that's manages the district's capital improvement projects, insurance, our when we go out for requests for proposals, that process. And then we have another one that manages the USAR grant and appropriates the funds for that. And they're very distinct positions. So what we did, and the senior management analyst is inherently a more generic classification that focuses on administrative and technical skills versus project management. So we looked at both of the positions, their duties, the study that we did back a couple years ago with Ralph Anderson, the USAR job descriptions, and we came to the conclusion that based on our review, that the senior management analyst USAR is properly classified as that position aligns with the job description, duties, and requirements. But the senior management analyst position that does the project management for the district, we did not feel is properly classified. So then we looked at classifications at our comparator agencies to find equivalent classifications and looking at the salary data for those. And what we are asking is that the board approve us to reclassify, to move that position out of the generic classification into a classification that more appropriately depicts the responsibilities of the CIP project manager and adjust the salary accordingly.
Any comments?
Just one real quick comment. First of all, this, for the HR committee was for And I did want to share that this is, over time, we've watched the scope and scale of what John Hitchcock has been doing grow way beyond what management, a senior management analyst normally do. So we think it's an appropriate reclassification, especially considering some of the capital products we have in our future. So that was it for me.
I have two questions, I guess they're kind of related. I was curious why this is coming up now. Like March.
You know, like our
This
our
one,
agendas were light. It's, we kind of were looking at, so no specific reason.
let me ask another way then. Is this the result of like another job offer coming in or a higher salary being offered somewhere? So the numbers that are in here aren't related to some external
No,
stimulus.
it's not in an effort to keep them here. It's to recognize the work and the complexities of the work that John's currently performing. And the timing is, we've been talking about it for a while, and see how there's always things on your back burner and they move to the front burner when you have time. That's what's happened. Yeah.
But I guess I sound a little grumpy here, but the only reason I say it is that it seems to me that the time to do this, I mean, I will still vote for it, but the time to do this is when we're doing the budget, when we're planning for the new year. And I would hope, and I'm glad that we're not responding to a job offer situation, because I think that this isn't the way to do it, if that's what it was.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely not. And yeah, like the chief said, this conversation started way before the holidays. We started looking into the positions, and it was something that we, initiated. It wasn't initiated by.
I have a related question that will actually be relevant for the subsequent discussion. And that is, when you talk about the qualifications for various people and stuff, for various things, they're specific, and I agree with the qualifications, I don't take issue with it. But when we have somebody in mind for a position, does that person have to have those qualifications, or is that just a nice to have?
No, they have to have the qualifications.
I see, okay, so, okay, thank you.
And also they have to, for a reclassification request, essentially, they have to be doing the job. We can't just, we can't grow the position and then say, oh, we think you would be great in that position and we want to reclass you. This is someone that's doing these higher level duties and meet the requirements. And so we're trying to right size the classification. It's not us saying, well, we'd like to add this to the position and that to the position, and we want to pick you. If that was the case, we'd create a new classification and we would have an open competitive exam. But this, the way that you do a recent classification request is that they're currently performing those duties.
Let me ask that, what if we then wanted to, if the person left and we wanted to hire someone new and so forth? Would we downgrade the classification?
No, we're creating the class based on the district's need, not based on the people that fill the positions. And so if John happened, which he's not, but if he did happen to go and get, some offer, this still meets the district needs. This is the level of position we need. We would recruit for this level. We wouldn't downgrade it. I don't know that, whether or not that has happened in the past, but typically you make changes to your class plan based on your business need, not based on who's filling a position.
Rob?
Yeah, does he, in this new position as project manager, will he supervise any employees?
I mean, he manages the contractors that are, but no district.
No employees, but contractors.
Right.
And what would you say the span of control would that be, high and low?
By how many?
By how many contractors?
I don't know actually. I know that, John and I meet every 2 weeks, and there's always a lot of interaction with contractors, but how many on any given project?
I think we have roughly 5 to 7 projects in process.
Yeah, so
right
it's
now.
hard, I'm like.
So a minimum
Oh,
would be 5 to 7 general contractors
There's usually several.
responsible for the delivery of it. In the case of the In the case of Station One, it's multiple people because he's managing the relationship with the city. He's managing the relationship with the design architects, and he's doing preliminary work, to identify potential contractors and bid processes.
Okay, and, ever since I've been on the board, John's always been my go-to guy. When I needed like a code or something for a gate, or a question answered to me, I mean, John's always had the right answers. Thank you.
And I think, oh, go ahead.
Well,
No, go ahead.
I want to ask you, and this is part of the attachment, not so much the one position that's we're discussing, but it's part of that for staff report. It seems to me that you rightly changed the status from non-exempt to exempt for the position, and I think that makes sense, given that he controls his schedule. He's the one that determines when he's going to set up appointments and so forth. But I have the same feeling for the senior management analyst job description that's in here. It seems to me, and I'm not sure about what the salary requirement is now for exempt, but it seems to me that it's somewhat similar. The person that does these other things, they determine their own schedule. There's nobody they can go and say, is it all right if I work overtime or whatever? And it seems to me all those senior positions like that should be exempt.
It should be exempt, it should be FLSA exempt, that classification, we have someone in that position as well, which makes it just a little, harder to navigate, but, that position is an exempt position, but at the district, it's not exempt, and it was established that way.
Does that affect any union contractor?
It doesn't affect union because it is an unrepresented position, but we just usually are cautious when there's someone in the position, and that would have to be a conversation we would have, and make that determination, but,
I see.
Yeah.
Because potentially it affects their compensation and so forth.
if they work a lot of overtime, it could, but then that's where we would, they would have the flexibility as an exempt salaried employee to, and things like that, but yeah, you're right that position at that level typically would be exempt.
Chief, how do you imagine, here's a person who sometimes the strike force goes out at different hours of the day and so forth. And somebody might be there to supervise that or sign off on something or whatever. And they're determining their own work schedule, but normally a non-exempt employee should be supervised in a way, or that overtime should be managed. How do you manage the overtime?
For a non-exempt employee?
Yeah, well, and I'm talking about this one in particular, who's like a senior manager.
Oh,
You've asked me to weigh in on occasions like this. We're talking about reclassification of a particular position, not how the chief manages his staff. So your question is really not properly agendized. So just mention that because you've asked me to point that out on occasion.
So on that note, I would actually suggest that this is long overdue as it relates to John. I move that we adopt the resolution approving the reclassification of the one senior management analyst position to project manager.
I'll second.
Motion is made in second, for the question. I just want to make one brief comment. I've been in John's position as a manager of a housing project. And, I was just wondering, it's just, to me, he got a lot of work on his hand as a project manager. And now he's doing over all of these projects. There's a lot of work there. And I've been kind of hitting around to our group in the facility that John needed help. And he needed a project manager. So that he can probably do a lot more. He can advance some of these other projects we got online as well. But he got somebody to pass things off to, like a project there. So, I'm through with my soapbox. Any other comments? No other comments, and I call for a vote.
Director Bernstein?
Aye.
Director Bloom?
Aye.
Director Crowley?
Aye.
Director Solano?
Aye.
Director Jones?
Aye, so motion passed. John,
Congratulations, John.
thank him for his work. We are on now to item number 6. which is to discuss and approve the emergency preparedness policy. Purpose statement that the chief is working on.
I will tee it up and talk a little bit about it, and then my guess is there'll be some conversations from our two directors that sit on the E-Prep committee. At our most recent committee meetings, we've been working our way through the draft policy. One of the conversations has been bringing it back to the board in increments for the board to, I'll say, adopt and approve. And then ultimately, once we have the whole E-Prep policy, in theory approved, we're gonna seek some community input and then bring back the document to the board for final approval. The piece that's before you today is the draft purpose statement. I will, for the sake of this meeting, in case you haven't read it, I'm just gonna read the one paragraph statement and then we can have a conversation. Doesn't hurt my feelings or probably any of the director's feelings if you guys want to wordsmith it or change it, but I think the intent was there. The district will anticipate emergencies and disasters and prepare our community and our residents to be resilient. We do this by communicating with our communities, engaging in localized need assessments, providing appropriate safety and resiliency education, and partnering in community disaster preparedness. We will engage with our communities through a collaborative process that involves working with groups of people in their neighborhoods and businesses, as well as our local government partners to address issues that affect our constituents' well-being in the hope of creating more resilient communities. The Menlo Park Fire Protection District Community Risk Reduction Unit will seek to elevate our engagement with the community to achieve long-term and sustainable outcomes, processes, relationships, discussions, and/or implementation. So that is what is before the board today for approval, so to speak. And with that, I will turn it over to Director Jones and/or Solano if you guys want to weigh in from the E-Prep committee side of things.
You're the chair.
That's okay, I pretty much.
No, the chief had, written a bunch of these, rough drafts, as we call them. I think, whoever, myself, and chief, bring it to the full board for just.
Yeah, we beat it up enough, so we wanted to.
Yeah, we
pass it on.
Now it's your turn to beat it up.
I just had some wording suggestions. That's
That's
it.
what we
That's,
might-
And ready.
it's the third sentence that talks about, that said, we will engage with our community through a collaborative process that involves working with groups of people in the neighborhood. Can we put, and I know it sounds weird that I'm changing the wording, but I just think residents sounds more personal than people, neighborhoods, people in your neighborhoods, we say residents, or, and then stakeholders and then businesses as well as local government partners.
So we just want to cross out any word in their neighborhood and.
Yeah, so it would say involves working with groups of residents in their neighborhoods, comma, stakeholders, comma, and businesses, as well as local government partners, et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, does that capture what Ron intended?
Well, I think so, yeah.
It's fine, it's all,
Or should we
as
say
you're
district?
writing,
Should
it's
we-
interesting, it's all kind of a little bit, everyone has a little different style, but
Yeah, I
those
just
words
think-
make sense to me, they would incorporate just fine,
Do we want to see district stakeholders or just state?
I think neighborhoods and business, I think just mean it's simple. I mean, I don't
If
know,
it's stakeholders, I was thinking of nonprofits too, or people who.
the stakeholders, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, that's why I'm including stakeholders, so it'd be residents in their neighborhoods, comma, stakeholders, comma, and businesses as well as local
And I'll
business.
make sure that the language that I modify and bring back to committee is inclusive, because we'll have residents. We also have people that reside during the day at our large businesses that we want to include and prepare.
That's why I meant put
Right.
stakeholders in there.
Sure. Now,
Makes sense. You said-
I mean, I think there is a difference. So that's why,
Of course,
yeah, so that's really, I mean, thanks for working on all of this, so, I mean, that was really my big, not that it's a huge change, but it just sounds more personal.
Yeah, you know,
No.
So I don't really have a comment on the wording in that paragraph. I'm a little indifferent to it. I mean, it ultimately comes down to what are we going to do? What I did want to just compliment the team on was the idea of bringing components back to the board for review. I don't think we were effective previously trying to bring a large collection of items back at once to the board. So I think the way you're navigating this to bring components as you have them available, bring them back to the board one by one. Then when all those are done, assembling those into the policy at the end is a much better way to do it. So my compliments to kind of a iterative process to get there, and bite-sized chunks versus boiling the ocean, I think will work more effectively.
To the goal, I think, speaking for myself, I think for a team, a little bit, is that we want to make sure we understood what we was doing, the
Yeah.
why part of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
To be clear about that, because the next part is the policy part, is gonna
Yeah.
give the details of how teachers and staff are gonna go about trying to make it happen.
Yeah, I think that's clear from the state.
Yeah,
Well, you just started talking about the thing that wasn't exact. I thought this was the whole banana and this was everything here. I didn't realize there were components or whatever, but,
The bottom of that page, last.
well, yeah, but anyway, it just wasn't clear to me, but I guess my question is, from both of you, what do you expect? Once this is passed and final, what do you expect to change in terms of what we're doing? I have two questions, that's one of them. What do you expect to change, things would change, what things would change?
Well, I don't know if we take that, Rob, I'll give it a shot first. The expectation is to bring clarity to, a little bit more, to what the, community groups can expect from the district and what the district can expect from the community groups. Because to me, that has always been, since I've been here, a little bit of fuzzy area. Everyone are making a lot of assumptions about what they think the district should be doing. And now you get into, which at a point, I think, is that we're saying, oh, this is our purpose, this is why we're doing what we're doing, and this is how we're gonna go about making it happen. So the change will come hopefully through, dissemination of, our position statement.
I see, so that really hasn't been addressed yet, but that will
We
be
know
done
that,
later.
as Gary said, we're taking, we better understand why we're doing it. Now we're gonna sort of how we're gonna.
Got it, okay.
That's the next.
And then the second,
Yes, Chuck,
oh, sorry.
there's also a bunch of items that we're still looking at. Not only the cert, but the alert, like the businesses that are
Right.
within Menlo Park,
that'd be
in order to get their input relative, like Meta and Instagram and some of these other places. And kind of look at from taking the program from the bottom up instead of the top down, to get their input from the bottom up and help mold the main emphasis or the main leadership direction from the fire district, and get those from input by all the volunteer groups, and deal with your emergency manager like in Menlo Park, your PD agencies that are within our fire district, and our OES group. And we also talked about the different messaging systems that we have available in our fire districts that either we can control or the county can control, of course, the state. And the chief was telling us about, help me, chief, the systems that are available to the public, like different types of media broadcasts and things like that. We're trying to coordinate those things too. So basically, what we've done is just scrape the surface here to try to get a policy statement and then work from there relative to these individual cognitive tasks that we need to address. Did that take?
Yeah, well, what we're gonna bring forward to you next is gonna really outline the how through active policy statement. We're gonna outline, what we think, and hopefully come back to the board and make sure that the board gets buy-in to what we think. how that should work, and the chief's getting his input from staff as well, so that now they can come back to the board with relatively a complete packet of our thoughts along that line, so that the community members, the third groups, the volunteers out there can have a clear picture. So if someone come ask me, I need $100,000 to run this program, you're gonna do it. We don't, how did that work? I mean, what costs do you have justified that you need this kind of money? Or even, not even that person money, say, we want you to do X, Y, Z, it may not be in our scope of work, kind of thing. So, it could be, but, at least you can have a parameter, a ballpark of what the district is all about when we define certain things on fairness.
The other question I was gonna ask, and it's not. This surprises me a tiny bit insofar as we tended to talk about the board as being a policy-making thing, to talk about the financial picture and the general direction. But now you're starting to talk about what you're gonna direct the chief to do, which seems like it's getting into, you will use the word implementation. That seems to be getting into management.
The chief is the person, they used to say in the neighborhood, head dog in charge. And he's person in charge, he directs his staff. But he directs based upon policies that the board has kind of adopted along the way as to some things that the board thought may be important. And it may be verified by what he see in the community, what we see in the community that needs to be worked on. So all that is gonna work in unison, but we can't, to bring everything to the board at once, you'll be here, another 3 hours, just trying to sort through, just trying to get it together. Because now we got pieces. So if the board is in agreement and understand that this sounds like a good purpose statement, so why? Then we move on to the next phase of it. And I think the chief got a whole bunch of ideas on the why part. And at some point, I think it has already went out in the community. Groups in the community have weighed in on certain aspects of this. So we're just picking up all the pieces and trying to put them together to where it makes sense.
Okay.
I think Rob.
It'll be clear to me once you bring back more stuff.
Hopefully this is clear.
But
And we can move on.
this is a little bit, it's fine.
And we just want to.
But this is kind of aspirational, it's sort of saying what your hopes are, what you'd like to see happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dream first, so we can move.
That's why we brought it,
That's the purpose.
everyone, that's why we brought it to the board, was to, throw that policy statement out there, get your input, and then we're gonna work on those other items, which is what we've talked about just now.
Just one last question. Do we have a community risk reduction unit? Is that something?
Yes, it is. It's in fire prevention, and it's basically staffed with Heather Keller and Amandi. So it's ultimately, the plan is for it to be 3 people, but that's the new, I'll say, name that fire prevention is using across the United States to deal with community education, community preparedness. So that's, yeah. And then one thing that may or may not be helpful, I'll just look for feedback from the board. As we bring these pieces back to you, I'm happy to share with the board the remainder of the draft, so you can see. We're still going to address these things. It's hard to kind of approve a piece when you don't know that we're covering all of our other bases. And so I don't want to overwhelm the committee or the board by trying to address it all at once in one meeting. But I want you to be assured also that we are addressing different components, because the first part that we're going to address is going to be community preparedness. And then we've got 2 other pieces that are external communications for emergency notifications and messaging, and then supporting a strong community basically CERT teams.
Right.
I just want to,
So I was.
as we're going through a section, I want you to have some comfort level that we're going to be still addressing those pieces, though we're not going to be talking about them at board meetings. It might be part of the next staff report, is to also provide you with a draft the entire current draft, just understanding we're just gonna talk about pieces. So,
Quick question, Mark. So, you just kind of touched on what my question's gonna touch on. So if I like dissect this statement, right, it's got at least this intro, which is the first sentence, then 3 other sentences. So are you, so I'm assuming that those are the areas that you're gonna be doing the E-Prep policies.
Yes.
Based, that you're gonna base the policy on those 3 sections, right? Okay. That, I just wanted to make sure that that was it. Do you think that this should be maybe broken up a little bit, so it's not like one big clump of words?
Well,
You know what I'm saying, so it's, you can more clearly
well,
see
I
it.
think.
But I understand that it's a purpose, it's a purpose
It's just a
statement, so.
purpose statement.
yeah.
I mean, you can bullet point the
Well, I'm
items,
not
but they will be bullet
I was
pointed.
on the fence on that though, Robert, because a purpose statement should be one statement.
One statement, I think, those areas being bulleted will be part of the policy, the statement itself.
Right, so then maybe when you write the section, that would be the bullet from like sentence 1, sentence 2, sentence 3.
From the draft I've seen so far,
Is that the way it's formatted is, okay?
it's what it's gonna be.
There's probably 100 different ways that
I know.
paragraph could be organized.
I know.
And the way I'm looking at it is I think it's directionally correct.
Yeah,
And I think the process you're outlining is the right process to come back in bite-sized pieces, so.
Yeah.
I move that we approve the emergency prep policy purpose statement as
I'll
modified by Virginia.
okay, I'll second.
Oh, it's around.
The modifications
Or
she
did Rob second?
suggested earlier.
Okay. No, go ahead, Rob.
Okay. Motion been made to accept the policy statement as written, and it's been seconded by Virginia. Call the question, Michelle, can we get a roll on that?
I had stepped out for a second, so Director Crawley made a motion,
No, Director Bloom.
No, Director Bloom made the motion, I'm sorry.
and who
Teach
seconded?
you to leave.
Virginia?
Virginia, Rod deferred to Virginia.
Thank you. Director Bernstein?
Aye.
Director Bloom?
Aye.
Director Crawley?
Aye.
Director Solana?
Aye.
Director Jones?
Aye.
So Michelle, that, the motion was made with my amendments.
Got it, yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
So we're on item number 7, and then down to the end.
yes, we'll see. I think Director Bernstein already gave some foreshadowing that he'll have some questions about the senior management analyst position associated with this one. But I will start off with just a conversation about what I'm requesting from the board, and that is permission to fill a senior management analyst position for a limited term. This is something that I had been talking about when Director Bloom was the board president and had been running the idea past them. And it was his suggestion that rather, my initial work ask was, let's do a 3-year fixed term position, get this project up and running. And his thought was, I'd be supportive of doing it for 6 months for you to put together a very thorough proposal along with a budget request to the board. And at that point in time, see if the board has an interest in supporting this moving forward. So let me fill in the blanks as to what this is that I'm asking the board to support. It is, obviously we have been on the leading edge of UAS or drones, in the fire service. It's interesting that technology is changing, and what the drones are being used for is also changing. We've seen it quite a bit in law enforcement. They developed drone as a first responder program, provide basically, in essence, real-time situational awareness. I had staff looking all over to try and determine whether there's actually fire agencies doing something similar. We know that Fremont has partnered with their law enforcement agency to do some, what they call drone as a first responder, but I don't think anyone's doing what I'm proposing that we try and do, and that is, when we get a call, and it's probably gonna be, maybe a half a dozen to a dozen types of calls, drones will automatically launch, and every call that comes in with some kind of latitude and longitude associated with it. The drone will autonomously start flying there. We will have a remote pilot in control of it. But the purpose is to launch that piece of equipment and have it go to the scene of an emergency and hover over it and provide real-time video streamed footage back to us at the fire station, in our battalion chief vehicle and in the engine, show what's actually going on scene. We already have in all of our stations, a program that displays, real-time information related to our calls. It's in the day room, and then we'll have a monitor in the engine room. When a call comes up right now, it actually shows a map giving you directions to that location, and it gives you a Google Map Street View of the facility or incident address. So you'll be able to see right away how to get there and also what the Google Maps Street View is. So you see it's a two-story apartment. Now imagine, in addition to this, we actually have a screen and you have an overhead view. And by the time it takes us to turn out and get down to the engine bay, it's likely that that drone will already be overhead, showing you real-time video of a traffic collision or structure fire or fill in the blank, and you'll be able to see it's a structure fire, for example, smoke's coming from a certain position of the house. You can, right then and there, as you're getting in the engine, ask Public Safety Communications to upgrade the response to the appropriate response. The remote pilot then can actually direct that, as I pointed out in the staff report, to the rear of the structure where you see the smoke coming from. Now imagine the fire captain's in the engine responding. We have an iPad tablet command on it. Now that live stream footage is displaying on our iPad, and we can see if we have a rescue problem or where the fire is. So even before we get there, we're preparing for whatever actions we need to take in order to, affect the rescue, keep our firefighters safe. If it's a hazmat spill, fill in the blanks, request more equipment. So many different uses. We have talked in part about piloting this program in 2 locations initially. Again, I'm getting a little far out ahead because ultimately what we'll do is come back, probably at the 5-month mark with a proposition to the board about, what the program could look like, what kind of equipment we would need, what kind of budgetary support we would need to purchase equipment. But what I'm trying to do is share with you how impactful this could be on our firefighters, how impactful it could be, hopefully on the San Mateo County Fire Departments, who will very quickly want to adopt this if it works. And then ultimately, if it's successful, I would imagine it would be imitated across the nation as far as the program goes. It's interesting. Fire chief actually had the vision to include a docking station on top of New Station 4. So that platform is already up there. We would need to do some things in order to be able to have a drone there. The second area that we probably would pilot the program would be out at our rescue site, because we have, power and capabilities and also the ability to try it out over the Dumbarton Bridge, which would be really helpful for us before we commit, figure out what. And that is the basically proposal that I'm coming to you today and asking for. It's basically a commitment of 6 months of salary and benefits to an individual. Obviously, if the board approves this tonight, we'll recruit and hire somebody for that period, assuming that we can come back to you in, like I said, probably 5 months and convince you to move forward with this. You'll have a decision point then. If we can convince you to spend some money on some additional equipment and also extend the fixed term position to a period of up to 3 years, so another 30 months, that will be the ask at that time. But that will be our responsibility, is come to you with a comprehensive proposal to move forward with the program, and also an honest assessment of whether it's really feasible to do. It's possible with what's happening with the FAA that might not be feasible, but as we watch local law enforcement agencies doing it right now, it's feeling very much like the time might be right for the fire service to start pushing forward with something like this. With that, happy to open it to questions. One quick thing that if the question revolves around the senior management analyst position, the reason this position is selected, I know we've already been talking about it tonight, generic management analyst position, we happen to have an allocation that's budgeted. I know very well not to say that there's not costs associated with it. Budget-wise, we're good. Costs, there's approximately, I think I estimated $120,000 in salary and benefits for the 6-month period. So for sure, there'll be expenses that we're not currently incurring. And yeah, the reason for the position, that specific position, generic enough that it gives us some flexibility. I believe I can recruit somebody with that, position description and salary range to come in here and be able to do that project. Yes, questions?
See, anybody have a question? I just want to ask a couple questions, not a question.
You're the president, you can go
Just line
first.
up. Just line up in front of me.
Yes.
Okay, could you maybe give an example, like what happened over in, Middleville, the fire, how the drone would have been quite useful?
Oh, yeah. Well, obviously, that's a great question, because we had our drone van there, right? It just happens the drone van arrived after we arrived. So what that would have provided us with, and I think about those initial on-scene crews, is it would have provided the crews responding with an aerial view. They would have seen where the fire is located. They would have seen, because they had approached it from the Middlefield Road side versus like the railroad track side. And when they initially got there, they said they saw smoke coming up. They're like, we can get this. Oh my goodness, it was so well involved. It would have changed their actions. It wouldn't have put them, if they put themselves at risk entering into that building and then realizing what they had. So I don't know that it would have changed the outcome necessarily. They might have upgraded the alarms a little bit sooner. But it would have reduced the risk to the firefighters, because you're gonna see a situation that's clearly not an offensive fire where we go internally to try and put it out, and it would have been a defensive fire in the beginning. But that's how it would have affected the 27. And then in addition to that, we may or may not have used the other drone resources. We ended up with a couple of drones out there providing situational awareness for the fire.
Yeah, so I have a couple comments and then a question. So the comment is, I think the vision is terrific as far as what you're trying to accomplish, and the notion of doing a 6-month study on it makes sense. It leads to two questions, mostly around the analyst position itself. One question is, are we going to be hiring a temporary employee or somebody with a limited term contract that can be converted later, or just,
Sure, I can answer that.
or is this
So-
full-time and then let them go 6 months from now?
So they will be, what we're proposing is they'll be a full-time employee with benefits in
Yeah.
PERS.
Mhm.
And if we can't meet the board's expectation, it's 5 or 6 months. And you decline to move forward with it, that person will be let go.
Again, that person will know coming into
Yes.
it,
But
that
that's what,
there's a decision point in
because they
6
need to work
months.
really hard for the next 5 months and help us, to move forward.
And then,
That said, if we get the go-ahead to move forward for another 30 months, they will again be a full-time employee for those 36 months in total.
Got it.
At the end of that, there can be a decision, right? We could, if it might be the program is on its own and it doesn't need a person to run it. It might be that we needed a position and we'll come back to the board and ask for that to be a full-time allocation. We'll see.
my second question on the job posting, or the description of the role, I guess, not really a job posting, is somewhere are you going to ask for drone experience?
Yes.
Because my concern would be, in a 6-month project, we don't want to spend 30 to 60 days educating somebody about drones and what the FAA rules are and what a commercial pilot's license requires, and
Yes, separate from the generic job description, assuming the board approves something tonight, we will ask for this person to have knowledge of industry best practices and trends, interagency collaboration with regional, state, federal, and UAS programs. It's quite a long list of things. Ability to develop these programs, they will have to already have a Part 107 license, which gives them the ability to operate drones. And they will have to have had a couple of years of relevant experience. So it's not gonna be somebody who was a banker yesterday coming in fresh.
Yeah, I think where I got confused, so you've answered the question, where I got confused is, this is not really the posting, this is simply our classification.
Yes.
The posting will have all the relevant stuff about appropriate experience for what you're trying to accomplish in 6 months.
That person should be able to come in and hit the ground running and have, yes, fine, yes. Have really good basic knowledge in order to,
That's good, Steve.
yeah.
Hit the ground flying, hopefully flying and not hitting the ground, but, yeah, okay, thank you for addressing that.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna ask the same thing, because I think when this came to the HR committee, we didn't really see the job description. Right, so, are we gonna get to look at the final job description?
The job description won't change, but the job announcement is going to, I'm happy to share these with the board, what the job announcement that goes out, so you see what's gonna be expected of the person. So I can, if there's concerns about that, I can let Francine talk.
Well, I'm just
about-
looking at like the experience and training stuff, the wording here, it's on. I don't see this, like page 3, right, where it says experience and training of the job description.
Right.
Senior analyst attachment B, senior management analyst attachment B. So,
Yeah, but I think that's what he just addressed, Virginia, is this is the generic
no, I know, but
job level, and he's got a complete separate description that has all the relevant.
no, I
So
know, but
required.
what I'm asking is what you're saying gonna be incorporated into this?
No.
Okay,
It'll
So
be in
this
the
is
job
just the
description,
classification.
this is, yes.
yeah,
that's the
okay, I
gen-
just,
Yeah, but, on the
This
experience.
just
remains,
wanna
this
make
is
that-
generic and it remains generic.
right, so I just wanna make that,
Yeah,
because because I agree with the vision. I just wanna make sure that whoever's applying for the job understands it, that's the expectation and not generic.
It'll be incredibly clear to them.
Okay, good.
And
That's what I'm
they'll
concerned
have to go through interview panels to demonstrate. their
Okay.
competency too. So
about. Okay,
they're gonna have to talk the talk, or walk the walk.
Fly.
Yes.
I have a
Thanks.
few, Chief.
Yes.
You said the cost is about 120,000 for the 6-month period.
Yes.
Since this is an non-exempt position, how much of it do you think will involve overtime pay?
But that's, I know it's on there as non-exempt. I was just chatting with Kristen about making it likely is gonna be an exempt position. But I don't anticipate it to be overtime.
It says non-exempt.
Yeah, so this is the funny thing, is that when this position was created under, the, emergency services, I forget what that division used to be named, it is actually exempt. So if you look on our master pay schedule that comes to the board every few months, we have one senior management analyst that's listed as a salary, it's a semi-monthly salary. And the other position hourly, because this vacant one was created the correct way, which is it's not eligible for overtime, so that's
Yeah, that's
not
not
right.
accurate.
Yeah,
so your plan is it for it to be exempt?
Yes.
exactly.
Okay. They have accessibility to a 24/7 vehicle in this position. The drone van will be acceptable for them 24/7.
We will, I don't have any plans, whether or
Oh,
not
okay.
this person takes over those responsibilities remains to be seen. They will have a vehicle available to them. So initially, it's gonna be, making a lot of visits, talking to a lot of people and doing a lot of staff work. And, yeah, the primary responsibility won't be response initially, but yes, our drone program in one way or another will still have the same level of service that it has had. This person may be responsible for it, they may automate.
So, under their supervision, would it be the on-duty battalion chief relative to be under their supervision, since it's an operational response?
Sure, if this person ends up in an operational environment, yeah, they will be reporting to the operations chief. That whoever happens to be the ops person on the scene of the incident.
So there would be call out for, provisions for this position then?
It really depends on how it gets filled. If we still have, if it happens to be somebody who's currently involved in the program that currently responds, that would be different than if we hire somebody else. So it just depends. But the primary purpose of this person is to come in and create a program. It could be separate from the current drone program. It could be in addition to it. They may or may not be involved with the running of the drone ban in our current drone program.
I
Really
actually
depends
think
on-
you would be benefited by having somebody focused on designing this program, independent from any response that's going on currently with our current drone system, because the current drone system is not what your vision is here. The current drone system is, we have a drone team that can come out and provide surveillance on a call at the request, I assume, of a battalion chief involved in an incident. This is to actually design a program where the drone itself is a first responder, not an individual, the drone, along with a remote pilot. So I think, to me, you're benefited by focusing this on the program design and letting the current program run independent of it.
And it's possible, it's likely during the first 6 months, 5 months. That's what this person's main focus is gonna be, is to develop a program that can get off the ground. No, really? Okay.
I think it may phase into, eventually maybe
Sure.
somewhere
If-
down the road.
If the board supports it at the 6-month mark moving forward, and we're working on a program, it's very likely that the two programs will be integrated,
So.
right? But yes,
That's what I would hope.
Sure, okay, we're not gonna have two separate programs, we'll have a program that might do two different things.
I just wanted to go back to what you were talking about the position. Right, let me make sure I'm understanding. Right now, the attachment B that's part of this item is identical to the attachment B that was in the item before. Is that correct?
I
It
just-
is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
But but you're saying that instead of it saying it's non-exempt, it would say exempt.
The budgeted vacant position was created.
Okay, I have a couple questions, I have some opinions also, but let me just deal with the questions. On the first page of this, page 1 of 2, the discussion, in the first line, it talks about an autonomous drone, and when I first read that, I thought it meant there would be no interaction, the drone would just take off based on the dispatch.
I probably used the wrong word there, because that does kind of imply that it's just gonna go on its own. It will automatically launch, and then we're required to have a remote pilot.
That's what,
Yeah,
so the
that's
pilot has
monitoring
to.
it. I don't think we actually have to steer it as much as we have to be able to see through its cameras, just to intervene if there's anything that needs.
And do these pilots now need line of sight, or is that gone?
That's,
Okay.
that's been the big change, is that is now gone.
I knew it was gone for part of it, I just wasn't sure if it was all of it or what the
Yeah.
situation was. The other question that will relate to one of my opinions, I guess, but I don't quite understand what the other agencies within San Mateo County are gonna do. Let's say they adopt this. What does that mean? Does that mean they get free service from us?
No.
Do they pay us?
I asked.
That's a great question. So here's the overall vision. I mean, I think realistically, it could be a regional service that we all, let's say the ALS-JPA runs it or something like that. Right now, we're gonna do it ourselves. And that means that, let me take a step back. For law enforcement, right now, the pilots are their dispatchers oftentimes, right? They have, all the PDs have their own dispatch centers. Our public safety communication dispatchers don't have the bandwidth to take over and do this right now. So, what's likely gonna happen is if we're successful with our program, others are gonna place pressure on perhaps PSC to be the ones that can monitor the drones. And also, everybody throughout the county has access to this drone footage. And there could be, I'm trying to think, maybe 6 or 7 well-placed drones throughout our county that can service everybody. Right, and the dispatchers could be the pilots for it. And it would be, adopted as a countywide system. And everybody would pay their fair share in whatever form it is. So, that, is in the perfect world how it would eventually come about, a good idea would move countywide, would likely be copied statewide and elsewhere else. But there's no long-term plan on us being the funders of this service across the county.
Okay, that's what it read like, and I just wasn't sure. I wanted to react to it because my reaction is not so much the proposal, but the cosmetics of the proposal. I'm very concerned about the fire response report that you just gave us show us that we're not meeting the response times that we're supposed to be meeting. I know that our firefighters are like 4-year-olds, many of them, not the women, but the guys. That these are toys and the boys like to play with the toys, and for us to go off on an adventure into new toys doesn't seem right in some ways, given that we're not meeting our response times, which is our job to residents. If we're the leaders in California, the leaders in San Mateo County, that doesn't benefit our residents at all, and I just think that the cosmetics look bad. I think the service could be great, but I'm just troubled about us going off onto an adventure of new technology when we're not meeting our obligations. And we're not doing anything about that. We're not looking into it. We're not proposing anything. It just troubles me. The second thing that troubles me is this idea that we're kind of partnering with San Mateo County and public communications and so forth. I don't think they're a good partner. I don't think they're performing. I think that, and it just seems like it would limit our options to the extent we do this. I haven't come to a conclusion on it. I'm just telling you that I'm troubled by the.
And maybe I can alleviate some of your concerns. First of all, it's probably years and years away before, years and years away before San Mateo County can adopt this, or others can do it. So, and that's, again, that's just the vision of us creating a program that's so good that others are going to anyway. Second, there is nobody that has come to me and asked for this, on the boys wanting their toys kind of thing. Usually that would be driven by the line folks. This is something personally that, as long as I was fire chief down south and up here, it's been one of those just unattainable goals that has always been kind of, one of these things. If we could ever do this, it would be truly an amazing improvement in our service. That's where it's coming from. And in likelihood, all the folks, there's not going to be anything flashy like a drone van or a bunch of stuff showing up. It's going to come from the rooftop of a station, go over and shoot some video footage, and then go back and nest and recharge. And all that we're going to see is it's as if you have a firefighter on scene almost instantly being able to stream to you this information. I understand our response times could be better. But I think still it's incumbent on us to still figure out ways where we can provide better service to the community. I think this will do it. Yeah, are we gonna get there faster? No, but are we gonna have the right resource?
Drone pilots?
Yeah.
And pretty much they cover each shift, right?
Sure, and they may or may not,
Personnel.
yeah, they may or may not be the appropriate people. It may end up being my command staff that just has an iPad and we get noticed, during the initial stages of this program. I'm like, I can get the training and I'm sitting at home on my couch and I get buzzed. I'll control the drone. It's one of those things that we do to get things up, and started in something like this, but I don't know if that alleviates some of your concerns, but truly, there's, obviously there was somebody else here thinking about this as a possibility because they installed that platform on Station 4. So it has truly been, I'm missing the word of whatever it is that everyone's trying to achieve, but it's achieved. It feels like it's.
Let me ask a
achievable.
second follow-up question though, just to be.
We wanna make sure we get it in time.
I was just gonna say, I don't have any real concerns about the cosmetic view of this thing. This district's had kind of a long history of innovation in fire and rescue. I got involved first time, I think 2008, 2009 with the district. And there had been 20 years of innovation around USAR and how rescue works and everything else. Our residents have been the beneficiaries of that innovation for decades in this district. So I really do applaud the chief for looking at an innovative area that can actually improve fire service, improve our intelligence when we're sending crews into dangerous situations. From a fire safety perspective, this is all about innovation. It's not an unreasonable amount of expense. And it has great promise for what it can do to really enhance the services we provide our residents and keep our firefighters safe. So I don't have any cosmetic issue. I think it's extremely well written. And I think it states clearly what the benefit of the program is and that there's an anticipation with success that other departments and other agencies will replicate what we've done. And I don't see any downside to the district of that.
Yeah, Chief, when a drone is used by fire protection to go out and do an inspection of a roof or something like that, who pilots the drone? Is it an operating unit or is it somebody from fire prevention?
It's, I think typically it's been Tom Owen who's out there with the drone man. That also said, we have tethered drones that can be launched from the BC vehicles and the battalion chiefs are all qualified to operate. And it's pretty low drag too, if it's a tethered drone. Be able to focus on heat signatures off from the roof and everything. So we can do it in a number of different ways. And we have some other drone pilots in fire prevention.
I mention it because I think that enhances the perception of the value of drones.
Sure.
The inspection side of it and so forth. And I mentioned that maybe as you're talking about these things as a third purpose or direction.
There's a lot of other uses, administrative too, for us doing defensible space inspections. A variety of different things that we can do. That would be really, really valuable, but the initial plan is for us to focus on this one area, see if we can't get it moving forward, and then we can expand the program to encompass everything.
And I think that, we just talked about, is it weekend acres or, I mean, that seems like it's up in the road somewhere. I mean, I can see the drone operating very, can spot what's going on really quickly to turn on and then make analysis, and we can make analysis of what kind of trucks you need up there, if there's one or three, I don't know. I mean, there's many uses for it, and I think Gary was right in terms of when he said that the district has always been, that's what attracted me to when I could get on the board, the innovation that there's history there for it, and there's no commitment now, it's only a concept, and so it's just a matter of proving the concept, whether it's gonna be.
It's interesting, the incident you brought up in East Palo Alto with the shooting, we actually located that victim using the drone and the infrared heat signature.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we wouldn't have found him. Unfortunately, he passed away, but it gave us the best opportunity to find a victim.
That was also a huge, I read the articles on that, a huge officer safety
Yeah.
Yeah.
addition because they located him behind a bush.
Yeah.
That if he wasn't deceased, would have been a true danger to the officers. So,
Okay, one last round, we move on.
Yeah, real quick question, Chief, we've had more incidents of bad weather and very high winds and so forth. what's the wind limit for drones?
That's a great question. I don't know, but my guess is there's gonna be times when we can't fly the drones, because those things they're pretty lightweight, so I think there's gonna be situations where we can't. I'll find out that question and get back.
Well, it seems like with wildfire particularly, it would be because those
Okay.
create their own draft and so forth.
I mean, in the wildfires, the only drones that could be flown were the fixed wings ones that, in my experience. So I would imagine there's gonna be inclement weather when that can't be easy. They can't be.
Rob got one fast one, you got a fast one too?
No, go ahead,
Okay.
Rob, I'll go after.
Google says 10 to 15 miles an hour.
No, I think that we have pilots available within the operational organization. So this position basically is to set up a standard operating procedure, prepare the program, issues like collateral use either by law enforcement or by other agencies. And then the records and retention, if it's being used as evidence to prepare a program, right? So. Okay.
Are you gonna apply?
No, I said I'm sold.
I'll make a
The back
motion.
to your,
I'll make a
your
motion.
fishing.
You can make a motion.
I'll make a motion to authorize a limited term senior management analyst position for a district drone program improvement.
Need a second?
I'll second it.
Heather, motivated second. Got the question, we don't have no questions. Michelle?
Director Bernstein?
I'm going to vote nay, and I'd like the minutes to reflect that I think it's premature. I think we have to address our response time first.
Director Bloom?
I'll vote yes, and I'd like the record to reflect that our response time goals are being met.
Director Crawley?
Aye.
Director Solana?
As an administrative position, as I stated, the aspect of preparing the program with the standard operating procedure, collateral duties as a foundation for a future program. That's why I'll vote yes.
Director Jones?
Aye, and there is no other statement other than aye. So the motion is carried, 4 yes and 1 no with the stated comment. So, anyone for item number 8, the rounding point here, we got 5 minutes to get through all this stuff.
What did you say, Rebecca?
11 minutes.
I think we got 11 minutes to do
Why 11 minutes?
this, something,
Oh,
just kidding.
Last time.
We need this humor this time, right? Proposed agenda items, item number 8, consider whether to place the proposed agenda item for February 18th. Board meeting on, future, meeting, agenda. From Director Bernstein to discuss fire response analysis, from Director Solano, discuss RV, and I think Robin was wanting.
Right, that was passed by the Menlo Park City Council, so I withdraw that as a request.
Okay,
So you don't want it,
it's not gonna be an agenda item, we're not gonna talk about it.
Okay.
And from Director Bernstein, discuss the, 2700 Metro Road Fire Investigation Report. And yeah, so those are 2 items that are making requests to get on the next month. Let's move to the next one.
A future agenda.
Future agenda item, which will be determined by the fire chief. Okay, any other comments on it? Nothing else, we'll move on.
No, I have,
No.
you can't just move on because you have to vote whether we're going to put them on the agenda too. But I actually do have a comment about fire response and analysis. And I think it's important for the board to decide whether we're going to have that topic based on accurate information and an accurate foundation of information. So in our last meeting, when this was raised, there were 2 comments made about the data that said this is why we had to have the analysis. And the first one was that the county is taking 1.5 minutes to process the call. And I would just point out that data graph 1 for the 12-month report, average call processing time by the county is 43 seconds. 90% are being processed in 141 or less. And for an accurate view, it's worth noting that 3,445 calls, the highest number were in 15 seconds or less. The second thing that was stated under justification for having this is that the district is not meeting its 7-minute response time excluding call processing. If you look at data graph 2 for 12-month report, page 4 for EMS calls only, the average is 4:45, 4 minutes, 45 seconds. 90% of EMS calls were 6:51 or less, and EMSA standard is 90% of calls in 6:59 or less. So we're 8 seconds better than required on EMS calls on a 12-month view. And then if you look at the data graph 7 for 12 months for all calls, our average is 4.4 minutes and 52 seconds. 90% are responded in 7 minutes and 10 seconds or less. We have no specific standard on fire response. So I'm perfectly fine discussing fire response, but I think the board, if we're going to have a discussion on it, it should be on the basis of factual data, not based on inaccurate claims that were made during the last board meeting.
Yeah, I'd like to refer the board members to page 10 of the report here. And I'm talking about graph 7. And the measurement that is used normally is the 90% rule. That we have to be responding within, in 90% of the calls within the limit. And if you look at graph 7, the 90% mark is showing over 7 minutes, or actually exactly 7 minutes 7 minutes and 10 seconds to respond. For emergencies only, we're beyond the 7-minute mark. So you can talk about your facts, but I'm looking at the facts that are in this report, and I don't think your facts are right. And I think the fact that we don't know what the facts are, or we disagree on what the facts are, is a reason to be discussing this thing here. It's not clear what these things mean. We ought to be very clear. We ought to look at them and discuss these things. Let me just point your attention to one more thing, which to me doesn't make sense, but it seems to be the numbers. If we look at page 12, table 1, the worst travel times are the ones that are in this, I don't know what you call it, brown or pink color. And they're at like 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning.
In my first table, second.
I'm looking at table 1. And you look up at the kind of the top third of the chart, all the slow travel times are at 3 and 4 in the morning. How can that be? I mean, let me just say, it doesn't make sense to me that the travel, we're not talking about waking up the firefighters. We're talking about their travel time. And that's defined from the time they leave the station till they get to the call. Something's not, I don't know, this doesn't quite make sense, and it seems to me we ought to understand what these numbers are. So I'm just asking that we have a discussion of this. And for us to just say, oh, well, that's not what the board looks at. I think for the board members that vote against what I'm asking for, I think they're being negligent. So let's just say it that way.
So Director Jones, if I could just jump in. Just to remind you that the issue is whether you want to have this discussion at a future board meeting. You may have information like Directors Bloom and Bernstein have mentioned that is important tonight to inform your decision about whether you want to discuss it later. But let's not spend a half an hour talking about the issue now. Why don't you figure out what you need in order to vote on whether you want to have this discussion?
So I like that, what Steve said too. What other information that would help us as a board make decisions on? Because whether we are in conformity with everything, or there may be external type of activity that may be preventing meeting on time. And I don't know, Chief, if any of that data is available or could be available to help answer some of Mr. Bernstein's concern. If there is, then let's just put it on the agenda. If there's, put it on the agenda, then we'll go from there.
Well, I think the question is just
Do we want
To
it
vote,
on the
you just need
agenda or
to
not?
vote whether to put this on the agenda, at which point you can have the discussion and ask the questions you were just asking.
Okay,
So one additional piece of information that may inform your vote. As part of the strategic plan, we have one of the bullet points on there is for us to come back in some form, if it's a study session or something, is to actually have the board establish some district standards. We had something that was adopted from a standards of cover study that was long ago, that in theory the board adopted and we've never applied and appropriately used. So that is, it probably all should be part of the same conversation if we're gonna do it, rather than have two separate, because they're very much connected. But regardless, we still have this thing that's on our strategic plan to address that at some point in time with the board.
so, can I get a motion to?
I'd like to move that we put the issue of response time broadly defined on upcoming agenda, the sooner the better.
I'll second.
Motion been made, seconded by, Director Solano, call for the question. I would like to make a comment and whether it works or not. I think we got a board retreat coming up sometime soon. This would be a great item to kind of thrash around, at that retreat. Spend a few minutes on it. Rather than put it on a regular board meeting, and we could thrash around and between. So,
So are you saying you would rather have this agenda item on the board retreat agenda?
that would be my, preference, but
Okay.
No,
he's not gonna be with it, so, okay, that's okay.
I don't know it's gonna be a board retreat. I don't have a board retreat on my calendar. This is an important topic, in my opinion.
I have no doubt it is, and I agree with you on that point. So let's just move forward, motion been made in second. Michelle?
Director Bernstein,
Aye.
Director Bloom,
Aye.
Director- you're saying aye, yes?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Director Crawley,
As he chokes.
Director Solana,
Aye.
Director Jones.
Aye. Motion carried, so we will figure out a time and date.
I'll work with you on that and then. So it's-
Yeah, we talked.
it should
about
be
that.
one collective discussion
Right.
as we try to figure out what kind of internal metrics we want to set.
Robert,
Yes.
I'd just like to say thank you
To
to everyone.
Oh, cool. I think everybody agrees with that. Okay, thank you, Joe. Moving on, I think the other item, was, we got the discuss, fire response analysis and the 27 Winfield, is that part of the plan or? is it a different
That's
con-
different agenda.
No, that's a different conversation. Different. So can I get a motion on that?
2700?
Yeah, you got to discuss 2700 Middlefield Road Fire Investigation Report.
I'll move, we discuss that on our agenda, on an agenda.
I'll second that too.
Motion been made, second by, so call for the question. I have I'm not
Discussion,
discussion.
yeah.
Anybody want to discuss that item?
Go ahead, Chuck.
I'll just say briefly, in reading it, it just raised lots of questions in my mind that I'd like to ask about. Like why people had smelled smoke for half an hour to 45 minutes before anything happened, why materials were stored up there. I'd like to just understand if there's some safety issues that we should be looking at.
You mean in the building that burned down?
On a building that burned down, yeah.
That's a city code compliance.
County.
Well,
County, yeah, it's county. Okay, motion been made, second.
I guess so Chuck, my question is, what do you want to accomplish by doing this? Because there are gonna be some questions like that we'll never be able to answer. And I just don't want to spin our wheels on this when we can have other things like the first item that's gonna be on the future agenda. I'm not against it, I mean, I think the report was pretty comprehensive. And so I'm just curious what you want to get out of putting this on the agenda.
It just felt to me like you hadn't asked the questions. There are people that were doing things and didn't talk to anybody. Didn't talk to many
Yeah, but
people.
how, you don't know, I guess. it's-
That's what I'd like to
why-
know. That's why I wanna do it. And I think it points out to some safety issues. It points out to, there's maybe some substandard, building code things for low-income housing that to me isn't appropriate. But I'd like to have
But
a
then
discussion
what
about.
can we do about that? There's nothing, that's.
We could
those
say
are-
that there were some safety issues that should be addressed in the future. I think our voice would be very powerful, if in fact that's true. I just felt that there was lots of stuff that you look at, you said, gosh, 45 minutes, people saying, we're smelling smoke, but let's not worry about it. Somehow that just doesn't make sense. I mean, maybe they need safety training, maybe they need fire drills, that's what we do in our schools.
So we want to try to understand, we're gonna put this on the agenda. You made a motion?
I made a
Yeah,
motion.
and Rob seconded it.
Second.
I second you.
Any other
If there's a
comments?
board member that has a question relative to a major 8 alarm fire, I think we should talk about it. We should discuss it. It's serious fire.
So, two things. Well, first of all, if the board votes to put this on the agenda, it'll be on the April agenda, because John, who wrote the reports, departed pretty quickly. That's it. If the board doesn't put it on the agenda, John has said, please feel free to reach out to him. He'd be happy to answer individual questions that a board member might have. So either way, your questions can be answered. Just wanted to share that.
Michelle?
Sure. Director Bernstein,
Oh, aye.
Director Bloom,
Aye.
Director Crawley,
Aye.
Director Solano,
I,
Director Jones.
Aye.
Thank you again.
Push your luck, that's even lower. All right, we are now down to, reports and requests,
New,
proposed new items, I'm sorry. And breaking.
I've got a few.
Oh, Rob, so you got a few. I have a few, Rob, go
I'll
ahead.
be fast. Okay, I was told by some people, that they don't like when they zoom in and they can't ask any questions. So I'd like that as proposed item that we discuss and, with the board's, majority or, DV into that to see if people that do call in a Zoom call can actually speak for the 2 or 3 minutes or whatever that they have. So I was asked about that. East Palo Alto had a meeting with the expansion of the Palo Alto Airport. And they're concerned about that, and I know that we have the major rescue responsibilities in that area, and I like that as an agenda item also.
Airport expansion.
The airport
You
expansion
mean Palo Alto
at
here?
Palo Alto Airport. And then thirdly is the California Fire Code. Can a city waive the state California Fire Code requirements for high-density housing requirements? I like that as an agenda item also. Thank you.
Any other ideas?
Did you have one?
I don't know. So there's no more, new proposed agenda item, we'll just, call it a wrap.
Okay.
All right. Reports and requests, go quickly on this, I think. Committee reports, emergency preparedness, I think we pretty much have talked about everything that's going on in
I
our
can
community.
beat that up.
And then I think, Rob, if you might have anything else.
No, I don't, thank you.
Okay, we don't beat that one out. According to Rob, so facility? Any report?
Facilities did not meet. There's been no change up until now. I think we'll be meeting meeting this next month.
Okay, human resource,
Basically, the two main items were voted on tonight.
Okay.
To the program manager and the senior analyst manager, or management analyst.
and finance.
Yeah, so finance, two things. One is, I just want the board to know that we did do the full annual audit process with the full presentation that's included in the packet by the auditor. So we did all the required communications at the audit committee. Finance committee has audit responsibility. But the presentation we saw is actually in the packet, should you want to look at the details of it. He covered the relevant required parts tonight, but there was a whole series of other disclosures that he made in the committee, all of which were positive, all of which were clean. So I just want the board to make sure that you did note that the presentation was in the packet. And then secondly, just note that the month of January 2025, our dividend and income earnings during that month were $666,000. So, we continue to see very good returns. We're watching the volatility a lot, but the reality is the market's been very volatile, but there hasn't been material change in the rates as of yet, especially given that we had switched to the 1 to 3 year duration on the investment fund. So that kind of insulates us from some of this volatility that we're seeing. And this volatility was all anticipated, so we kind of planned for it.
And we're keeping an eye on it.
Yeah, we do drill into this.
At every meeting.
Yeah.
I think you guys have done a fantastic job in that, and the more we look at how our facilities, being able to cash out, your own cash to pay for improvements in that, somewhere, really, we need to say hallelujah on that one.
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason our interest income's going up isn't that the rates have been better. The rates are lower than they were a year ago at the same time.
About a percentage.
But we have more money invested as well. Yeah, so we continue to hold it. The one thing that we do watch with the investment managers is our investment fund is a little different than some because our plan is to spend the vast majority of that money in a pretty narrow duration of time when we build a new Station 1 complex. And so we have to be prepared to liquidate that investment portfolio and make sure that we don't take any losses at time of liquidation. So we're watching that metric as well.
And then they know, we remind them
Yeah,
of
we
that
remind
all
them of
the
that
time.
every month.
Yeah.
I just did a good job in
Yeah.
the process.
Virginia, did you have anything else?
No.
Everything else was the
Looks
the
great.
stuff that we all vote on every meeting.
Liaison report, Town of Aston.
Yeah, so just real quick on Town of Aston, as the chief mentioned, he attended the meeting. My thanks for him doing that. I did get some comments back from some of the council members. It just reiterates and reassures them that Menlo Park Fire District is their city fire department. We talk about that, but having the chief visible there, addressing questions, and then ultimately holding the joint forum with the police chief there in the city really reinforces that. So I think it was a good move on the chief's part. It was well received. So my thanks, chief, for doing that. Just a couple things that they're safety focused on. One is they are making a traffic change. They're gonna put a no left turn sign on Encinal as you head towards Middlefield at the Encinal School. So they've had evidently some serious safety issues around Encinal School and the way traffic backs up, causing people to then do irrational things to get around the backup to get into the pickup area. So they're just eliminating the left turn. People have to come off Middlefield in order to get into Encinal School.
At all times of the day?
I believe they're making that a permanent change now, yeah. So that's one change that was very safety oriented. I'm only bringing up stuff that's relevant. The other one is they're looking to expand or to build a garden project, kind of a interactive, involved nature center for children in the backside of the library. And again, they're heavily focused on both ADA access, but also there is tremendous amount of safety discussion to make sure that safe equipment, safe surfaces, all those kinds of things were put into the project. So it's always nice to see a town council that's focused on safety. It makes our job easier. So that's all I have to report.
All right, thank you very much. I think you spell out or what? Chief mentioned that the city is going through next Thursday, 25th of March, we'll be having their one area planning was focused on emergency preparedness conversation. And it's gonna be pretty, they, over the last 3 months, have been going through identifying, areas within the city that need improvement. Been having community meetings, community members to talk about areas that need improvement. So hopefully, I think their goal is by April, maybe May, they should be finished with that process. So they would have then their 3-year, 4-year plan for how they're gonna go about trying to make improvements in the city. So the chief is gonna be there. I know I'm gonna be there. Inspired to be there. City of Menlo Park.
Yes, so I, along with the chief, attended the special council meeting on March 11th, representing basically the fire district and the fire board. And that was really focused well, one of the main topics was, I'd say probably the main topic was 320 Sheridan Road. And, thanks to Rob for being there and speaking up, and, it was just great to hear the various comments. You had suburban park residents and flood park residents talking about, this second ingress and egress issue that's out there. In the end, the council voted 4-1 to move forward with the workforce housing for the Ravenswood School District. So, but I think the new issue kind of that's come up was the wires that have been talked about possibly undergrounding them. So Skip Hilton and I'm doing a walking tour of the area at his request, which I'm happy to do, and that's right now gonna probably be around, I think, maybe March 28th, and I think it's changed again, so we'll see. We're scheduling a meeting with, I'm scheduling a meeting with the chief, the mayor of Menlo Park, and the city manager, and that looks to be possibly on April 15th. Once Michelle can confirm with everyone. So I'll give an update at that meeting, at our April meeting. And then the mayor of Menlo Park has invited me to kind of be involved with his office hours on, I think it was March 29th. I'm also scheduling meetings with the 2 new council members, especially Jennifer Weiss, whom I haven't really had a chance to speak with. So it's been a pretty busy month so far with just Menlo Park. And then, I have something for Atherton that I can talk about in the report. Well, I went to the town hall. I'll read to you that as my report.
Okay.
Okay, so that's it for the Menlo Park liaison.
All right.
Report.
Okay. County District 3. Who's that? Rob?
No,
San Mateo County.
That's
District
Gary.
4,
Here.
District 3.
I'm sorry.
Nothing to report.
District 4, I didn't report either. So we'll move on to San Mateo County Hospital Emergency Medical Joint Powers Authority, Rob?
The chief had put out an email, requesting some additional funding through the dispatch services. And I don't know, maybe if we meet next quarter, they'll try to resolve that issue, chief. Since you're on the executive board, you had anything? I think it's still circling.
Yeah, we haven't heard back from Mike.
No, okay. That's all I have, thank you.
Reports, request for the director.
Actually, the creek.
I do have.
You're gonna make the change on that.
We made, did we make the change? I think we did.
Robert has to.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me, it's one of the moments. There's been a request to make a change on representation for the joint power, the creek, JBS. The change will be, Gary is stepping down in Virginia is stepping up into that position because of the relationship that's things that are going on in the city of Menlo Park that she thought it might be. And I concur, it might be a good idea to have her to sit on that as well, and then Gary agreed as well. So
It's really an efficiency issue because Drew, the mayor of Menlo Park, is also the chair this year of the JPA. So Virginia's already dealing with them. Doesn't make sense to have multiple interactions.
So do we need to have a vote on change if we voted to for a slate of people? No,
If nobody has any objections, then there's no reason to not accept that.
anybody got any objection to that?
Oh, definitely.
Okay, so we just move, change the name.
Thank you.
Thank you, and so the last thing is, reports, requests from directors.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
Rob?
Yeah, I had, Michelle make copies for all the board members of my, well, they should all.
What is it?
In the back?
Oh, is that
Oh,
what
that
this
one,
is?
yeah.
Okay.
I ended up as
That's it.
a resident mental on the March 11th council meeting. I wrote up an appeal as a private citizen. And I refer to my correspondence written as a private citizen of Menlo Park, the Sheridan Drive Ravenswood School District project, as an important project for our community. It appears the main entrance as a huge problem in violation of the California Fire Code. If completed and not undergrounding a power line, this undergrounding could cost millions and a huge time delay to complete the task by PG&E. The developer has known about this issue since March 2024. The easy, less costly, and timely solution would be the Caltrans Greenbelt that parallels the sound wall that runs into Van Buren. This backs up to the project. I think it is worth mentioning that this also relieves any strife with Haven House providing emergency access. A letter from the San Mateo County Deputy Sheriff's Association is included with your packet supporting two ingress egress. And that Senator Becker did say he would help with Caltrans in writing a letter to the Menlo Park City Council. Let's get these projects moving. We're already behind in this construction of this project. Too much is at stake. We need to provide housing for our community now. Thank you.
So your request is to,
Could be his report.
The report is not.
is on the fourth.
It was my personal appearance in front of the city council. And we had spoken about this previously to do a recommendation for that particular project. And now we're finding out that that main entrance has a California Fire Code violation if they go through with it, with the main entrance, with that power line going across. Thank you. That was information we didn't have that time in December.
So I just want to enter that into the record.
Can I ask the question of Rob?
Sure.
I was curious, is this something the fire marshal didn't notice or didn't discuss?
In March, there was a building site review that the fire prevention unit had prepared for the project. And in that was not of 9 points. In fact, it's in your packet, where the fire marshal includes on the first page of the building site review. They talk about items 1 through 9, but they also identified the main access point that would be a problem if they use it as a main entrance and exit.
Okay.
And then we're discussing we should.
Yeah, right.
It's not on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda,
Right.
so.
No, it's just a report.
It's just a report, so. We have to work on it next month.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, you have a report or request of the director?
No, that's pretty good. Did
Go
you
ahead.
have a turn?
Go ahead. This is
So,
yours. No, I'm done, thank you.
So on March 13th, I also attended the Atherton Town Hall, the joint town hall that we did with the Atherton Police Department, and Mark and Heather did a fantastic job. So, Mark, please thank Heather for us, because she was wonderful. I think it was well received. Diana Hawkins Manrolian was there, as was Susan Warren, who's the head of ADAP now, the new chair of ADAP. And I think, we had an okay turnout. I think the town wanted, or at least Diana thought they wanted more. But I think the people who turned out were active, and so they're going to take things back to their community and really work on just improving things, or if they're not a member of ADAP, they're going to become a member of ADAP and that kind of thing. So I think overall, it was good. There may be demand to do another one, Mark. Because I think that some Atherton residents thought that the notice could have gone out more frequently, although I got a lot of emails and it was on social media, but this is
About
just
10
the
different
feedback.
places.
I know, I'm just saying, this is the feedback. But anyway, the point is I think it was informative, it was timely, and the information was great. But if they want another one, I'm just saying, Gary, you're the liaison, so that's some of the feedback, okay?
Thank you for that. I was unable to attend. I had an illness in family.
The report is, looking on
At the town hall.
Okay.
Yeah, because I attended because Gary couldn't make it.
Okay.
And then on March 5th, I think I got this request from Supervisor Canepa for us to do the mental health and wellness presentation with the Board of Supervisors, which we did on March 25th, which the chief referred to, again, with retired Battalion Chief Tom Calvert and current Battalion Chief Jason Martin. And we had a dog there, Christine Hollander from First Responder Therapy Dogs, and he was a hit. And he could a lab, like a yellow lab, he was adorable. The main thing though is that really this was a resolution that Supervisor Canepa and Supervisor Gaucher put forth to the board to affirm their commitment to the mental health and well-being of first responders. And so they know that some of the things that we've done with it have been pretty important, and that's why they called us in. And the end result, essentially, after a lot of discussion, I think most of the board fully supported it. And Jackie Spear, Supervisor Spear, made a resolution to kind of move forward to see what the county can do to put together a more county-wide focused mental health and well-being program. So I'll keep everyone apprised of what's going on if I hear more. But right now, I'm hoping that there's gonna be more momentum. And, but there seems to be a lot of support. In fact, someone from the county executive's office said, oh, you had a really successful morning. And I said, oh yeah, why is that? And he said, because you came in to do a presentation and you left with a new program. So that just shows you the support that we had, or that they had for our program. But they're just working out the kinks right now and the logistics and, how is this gonna move forward as a potential program. But it was successful, so thanks, Mark, for being there. And we did, I think our presentation ended up being almost a half hour, and it was supposed to be like 10 minutes for the three of us. Or four of us.
That wasn't our fault. The board had a lot of questions and comments.
Yeah, which was good. They were very engaged. We did the presentation within their time limit.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't have anything to report. I will just do it, please, to give you something next month, but now I'm not anything. So if nothing else to be said, we will adjourn our meeting
At 9:26.
at 9:26. 3 seconds.
Thank you.
Pretty close.
Is that?